Trump's been president for 3.5 years. His campaign has been, his White House, his campaign has been focused on day one to winning a second term. They've spent 3.5 years doing a very effective job. I mean, you know, I'll believe this tweet when they say they've trained 1.4 million volunteers. They've contacted over 55, million voters. There was no way Biden had the chance to do that. He only wrapped up the nomination a few months ago. The Democratic Party didn't have the opportunity or the money to do this. So Trump has a huge advantage in getting more of his voters out and finding new voters that are similar to the old ones to get out. I mean, are these models, do you believe that Biden has an 80-90% chance of winning right now, Peter?
I don't. And, these numbers are concerning. There was a certain arrogance on the Democratic side where we talk about our ground game or our, how many times did I do voter registration drives in the same neighborhoods, from 1980 to 2000, and the voter turnout never really adjusted by more than half a point. Our ground game was never as sophisticated as the Republicans. We had more arrogance than they did. But I am worried that we'll start believing our own press releases and believing, the press reports, and that our ground game will not be particularly strong, and that where Biden is leading by 3 or 4 points, I would be very nervous. I think there's a hidden Trump vote that's there, and I know some of the pollsters poo-poo it. I think it's there. I know people who are of my ilk that won't admit they're voting for him, but are. And I think we got to keep our pedal to the metal, and I'm afraid we're not.
Anything?
Steve, I do. I agree with Peter on those points. The power of the incumbency is something we're all three of us very familiar with, and it's quite pronounced when the incumbent is the president of the United States. Given all the tools at the disposal of the White House, we see them using those tools at every turn. Many of which are tools that arguably they are not supposed to use for political purposes, but they regularly do. I think on the one hand, it would surprise me if this is the one area where they have some competence. The one thing we ought to remember here is that the level of competence they've displayed on everything from legal matters to legislative matters, and just even trying to speak consistently is alarming. But we need to make sure that we're running all the way through the finish line of the tape, because there is that chance that they've got some of this figured out in ways that we're not aware of. And I'm particularly concerned that they have found some pockets in several of the key swing states, some pockets of potential support, which the pollsters can't capture. People who until recently were not registered to vote and not engaged in the process. And there are all sorts of ways that I think that this sort of strange behavior from the White House and from the campaign can activate a number of those individuals in ways that we all may scratch our heads at, but they found a way to make it work.
Yeah. Steve, I'm also fearful that, if Trump loses, his army of supporters are going to lose in multiple ways. There is going to be a sense of desperation, and I feel it among some Trump supporters right now, that they know that if they lose, there is going to be hell to pay, and they're going to be desperate. They're going to be working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and I'm not sure I've ever seen that work ethic among our Democratic field workers in a long time. Maybe Obama 2008, not since then.
And in the era of the pandemic, that field work gets to be almost, impossible. And so going back to the tweet, what Trump has been able to doing for the 3.5 years, you can't catch up to that now. And it really is, in some ways, Trump is hurt by the pandemic because he can't do the rallies, he can't build the energy off of that. But the Democrats are really hurt because we can't organize the way that he's had been able to.
Yeah,
there's going to be no.
You'll see the quadrennial game of Plumitus, where more and more Democrats go spend all their waking hours trying to find which jobs in the Plum Book, which list all the presidential appointments, they're gonna angle for, when they should be trying to run this through Election Day and possibly beyond.
Too soon to be measuring the windows for the drapes in their new offices.
Listen, it's too soon to be talking about a transition team. That is just baloney. This election is not won by any means, and I'm fearful that if any other candidate had 3 weeks like this president, and who's facing the moral disaster and health catastrophe that he's facing, you would say this is over with. We don't need to talk about it. He's within striking distance. He's within the margin of error in most of the swing states.
I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about over the coming months. It's far from over. Well, Peter Thurgood, thanks a lot. We'll talk again next week.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Steve.